Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Susan Ibitz. Susan is the brains behind the Human Behavior Lab. Susan is a global expert in the science behind human behavior, microexpression, body language, deception detection, statement analysis, face reading, and personality types. Susan is sought after by government, law enforcement, commercial entities, and higher education to train their staff and students on the many channels of communication. Susan, it's a pleasure to have you on the Success Insight podcast.
That person sounds amazing. Can you introduce me to her?
You know, she does sound amazing. And in the spirit of full disclosure, folks, I know Susan. I get to work with her, and she is the perfect person to chat with about what we are facing today in society, our cities, towns, countries, governments, because there's a lot going on in the age of the COVID-19 pandemic and this global healthcare crisis. And Susan, it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm so glad you've taken some time out of your busy day. I know you are quarantined in this beautiful place near the Indiana dunes, and the fact that we are virtual now is really what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm self-quarantined since March 10. I have the luxury to have a lovely house in the middle of the forest, and it initially started being my secluded on the weekend and slowly become my home and my house, because there's a difference between home and house. For people who does statement analysis, home is where your heart is located, house is where your clothing is hanging. Actually, I become virtual 2 years ago. And all my team, it's around the world. So when we says we need to quarantine and move to have everything online, we were like, okay, it's going to be the same as every day. So that's when we jump on reaching our clients and says, okay, guys, we have 2 years of expertise. We had been training companies on demand, live, and preset classes on Europe and every continent that you can imagine. So we know how to do it. Our team can help you in all the languages you need to be helped, because a lot of 500 companies have people and offices in Latin America. So we can train them in Spanish, Portuguese, and English. So we jump and help in mood. And we have been seeing companies having improvement for the simple thing. And like, don't panic. We can help you. It's as simple of following this rule. And it's been really rewarding knowing that your knowledge can help others, because I don't remember who says you don't have any right to die with your knowledge without sharing with others. So it's gratifying knowing that in a moment of crisis, you can help others to navigate, because isolation has been really hard for some people and how to handle it.
Sure. You know, that statement you just said, how dare you not share your brilliance? And I've heard that before, and I actually love it, because anybody that says, I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm not good enough, and they are good enough, but for some reason there is a little self-deception, a limiting belief. It's like, how dare you? And I love the fact that you can share that and help companies that are struggling to come to terms with what the new work environment is going to be like. And I would love, Susan, before we kind of perhaps dive into this new reality that we are facing, the reality of, how can we help individuals who perhaps previously have not had the exposure to working remotely. I know there's some tips that we can share with our audience, but give people a little bit of background, if you would, about the work that you're doing in Human Behavior Lab, a human behavior hacker, a behavioral hacker. I mean, you freely throw out those monikers, and for the sake of our listeners, share a little bit about your background, because, folks, it is fascinating.
I always say I'm a human behavior hacker. Some people hack computers, I hack humans. And sometimes when I do a proposal for a company, it says, I have 20 years of experience researching and teaching. And I put a disclaimer, non-human has been harmed during these 20 years of experience. I make people laugh. Adult education requires laughing and making you feel comfortable, because where cortisol is elevated, that is the stress hormone, your brain get in a conflict. So when you release oxytocin, that happens when you have a natural laugh or make your people laugh, even though when they look in your proposal for work, or at least they feel it's goofy, it's more positive for people incorporated. So what I do, let's see. I study with Paul Ekman International in Manchester and with Paul Ekman International in California, microexpressions. I study body language in Belgium and with other experts from former interrogators from CIA, FBI, interrogators who were in Guantanamo, hardcore interrogation that you can do interview. I study personality types. I'm a certified Myers-Briggs, and I use another personality assessment. I'm not certified, but we have a team of people who certify. Actually, you and I, we talk about DISC when I was exploring to do different certification, and you give me a lot of tips about how to better handle DISC to get personalities. I do face reading. Face reading is been among us for 5,000 years, but developed by the Chinese because women were allowed to be touched by men and women weren't allowed to be doctors. So how do you diagnose people that you cannot touch? And they found all this correlation between organs and places in your face. I don't do the Oriental part. I do the Western part, and I call hardcore because it's the face reading you use from selecting the right jury, voir dire. Because when people says, oh, you need a body language expert to pick up the jury, like, no, nobody have a positive body language or positive face read and micro expression when they're on the jury bench. I think I'm the only person who would enjoy it, but I can't. I'm going to be expelled because I'm an expert on the field and probably work with some of the lawyers who are going to be there. So face reading is fascinating, at least for me and for people that I talk, because yesterday I was talking with a client and says, what is the pain that I fix in your company? Because I'm trying to understand better who I am. And we says, after 20 years, I was like, yeah, I so incorporated in what I do, then sometimes I don't understand the effect they have in people when I face reading. And all my clients says, I felt for the first time that somebody get on my brain, know me, and help me to understand that the way I am is nothing wrong with that. So I fascinating because I have three things happen when I read people's faces. They cry because they feel like, oh my God, it's nothing wrong with me, you see me. Another one's like, are you talking to my partner? You are friends with my psychologist? How you know that? And the third one is like, is no way you can know that. Is no way. So I like that. And the best part is I teach people how to do it. I always says, I don't give you the fish. I give you the fish in the beginning so you can taste this and savor it. And after that, I teach you how to fish. I like to get people being independent, able to read others. Because when you read others, you have this option to, when you need to make for example, when you need to make a contact with a client, it usually takes you like 3 to 9 calls to know your client and needs. In this case, knowing what I teach, what we teach, help you to go from hello to I know your needs. So that's the reason I put everything together. And the last things then I incorporate with the statement analysis. I study with the person who developed the program. He came to the United States in 1987, Amino Ansapir, and he was an interrogator for the Israel military. He's a hardcore. I adore Amino, but he's really tough as a teacher, and I appreciated that because he break me until he put me on the top of the game. And I studied forensic analysis in New York with the mentee, the person who was trained directly from Robert Shai, who was the person who found out who was the Unabomber, reviewing and analyzing the manifest based on the words that he avoid to use and the dialects that he used. And most people says, how you can become so good reading people's texts or emails if English is not your first language? Well, all the programs have been developing by people who doesn't speak English because you start paying attention to things like I told in the beginning, what is my home and what is my house? And I'm a hostage negotiator level 3 international certified as a civilian. I have the luxury to being accepted on the program because I want to know internally what is going on. So when I train hostage negotiators, I can help them to profile someone in 10 minutes. And the word profile have a bad rap, like more words sometimes have a bad rap, but profiling is what you do when you go into the pastry store and you says, what is the best cake for my birthday kid? And somebody's trying to sell you the old cake and you pick it up. That is profiling. You're profiling your pastry chef when they want to try to sell you something that is not what you need or what you want, is what they need to sell you. So but basically that is profiling. Or when you come back home and you ask your kid, hey, do you have homework? No, the teacher wasn't in the school today. You need to keep doing questions. People don't lie to you. We don't do the right questions.
So, Susan, my question now for you, you've got this wonderful, very interesting, fascinating background. And I know interesting and fascinating do not provide the justice it deserves. And what I'm curious about is, how do you take this toolbox of yours and begin to help organizations today who are struggling to come to terms with, for the sake of better words, is our new reality? We have this global healthcare crisis, this pandemic. Many of us are no longer able to work collectively in an office. Folks like you and I, we're used to working virtual, so we're perhaps a lot more prepared than others. But there's companies out there that all of a sudden had to figure out and come to terms, how do I get my employees into their homes, give them the technology that they needed, but also to work with them to continue to accomplish their work. And at the same time, these individuals, they're scared, they're afraid. There's a lot of uncertainty they're faced with. They're also faced with having to go online, much like you and I are online right now. We're using a webinar tool, Zoom. We're used to talking with each other, but now managers, supervisors have to have conversations with their employees or phone calls with their employees. So what's that new reality? What are you seeing from the clients that you're working with? And how does your body of knowledge help them to navigate this uncertainty that exists?
I'm going to use a phrase that I heard from Simon Sinek, one of the most viewed TED Talk ever. And he had a meeting with his employees in the middle of the pandemic when this started. And one of the employees asked, are you going to have a work? And he replied, well, it depends on you, because the new reality is going to require new skills. It's going to require to be adaptable. And in the other hand, when I talk to companies and I talk to employees, when I do the training, I says, you're going to be indispensable if you can show you can be a leader. All the times that you're asking to work from home and they told you no, now is the way to show that you can do it and can do your job. If in the middle of this crisis you can show you can do your job and do it well, you're going to keep your job. If you show how you can be helping others, is a way to show your leadership. Because pointing how other people make mistakes is not a way to show that you're a leader. Helping people with your knowledge is to be a leader. So we have two different help and trainings that we have been doing with companies. We are training the managers and we are training the employees. The employees can be sales rep, can be the people who pick up the phone, who does billing, everything. Don't worry. We have two sectors, because the manager is going to the same, oh my God, what am I going to do? We went from see you tomorrow for coffee to, hey, this is your laptop, you're not coming back to work. Now you need to manage your people. We don't have that meetings where we have donuts and coffee on Fridays and we have fun. We don't have the Monday morning on the kitchen and the cooler having coffee and talking about what happened in your weekend. So managers, first of all, they need to re-understand how people, their people work. First of all, introverts, ambiverts, and extroverts. An introvert is a person who needs to recoup information, has nothing to do how social is. An extrovert is a person who recoup energy being surrounded by others and having continued relations. And an ambivert is a person who can navigate both, can be an extrovert and an introvert. An introvert actually can be pass as an extrovert, because when they talk about what they know and what they're passionate about, they can talk for hours. You and I were introverts, but when we talk about work and things, like we can go for 5 hours nonstop. But after that, we need time. So as a manager, you need to know who is your team before to put everybody 9 to 5 on video calls. We don't need to do everything by video. And this is a misconception. because now everybody's using Zoom or other Skype. I don't know any software who haven't developed a way to communicate. We're not selling any of the platform. Just I'm saying is talk to your people before you're going to put them on a video call all the time. You can do a video call without sharing the camera. You can be sharing a presentation only with the voice. So you allowing people to be as exposed as they need. Because the difference between public speaking fear and video speaking fear, actually video is higher than public speaking. People is terrorized. So when you have fear again, and you have all this adrenaline going in your brain, it's going to affect the way you not only develop in your work, how effective you are, and how effective you can be in a meeting. So as a manager, we start talking about allowing people to be in a safe zone. Safe zone help me to be creative. Safe zone help me to help others. A safe zone help me to have inner peace mind. For the employees who are like, okay, I want to jump in a video call with my coworkers, with my clients. When it's coworker, I advise people to try to, with the people you work, get on a video call and work in real time. Get a body work. Get somebody who can get you accountable when you're working. If you tend to get distractions and says, okay, Howard, you know what? I need to finish this project and I can get distracted. I need somebody who get me accountable. Like if we were working in the office, can we get in a camera? So anytime that you see me checking the phone, I say, Susan, we agree you have 45 minutes nonstop. Oh, you're right. So I put my phone down or put my phone on the kitchen or outside myself so I don't get distracted. And I put a timer in 45 minutes and both we get accountable. This is a great way to work with team. Second of all, I would say that the teams need to be aware that when you have meetings, try to get all the people who get on the meetings and send an agenda in advance. When you don't know what you're going to be talking about, it's terrifying. Like, oh, they're going to ask me a question that I don't know about it. So you allow introverts and people who's more shy to be prepped and not to be overpowered from the extroverts, or the extroverts who are like, oh my God, I haven't seen anyone all week. So they talk like they're tigers in a cage. So you need to be careful with that. Now, related to the customers, I'm going to give 5 tips that I think they are the Bible when you're going to do videos. The content of what you says is the most important thing. Second of all is the audio. If you need to invest in anything at this point, you need to invest in audio. Your background is the third one. I don't need to see either the memorabilia from the 80s when you was a single guy. I don't need to see the spare bedroom that you have. I don't need to see the pile of laundry clothing that you're going to be folding later. Why? If you're talking about my organization is on top, I'm going to sell you. And I see that visually is like your words do not they're not cohesive with what I see. And people need coherence between, like the same way the body language and words need to be matching, what I'm seeing behind you need to be matching. So you have a lot of ways to use Canva or PowerPoint to do your background. And if you don't have that, the ability to do, because the program you use doesn't do it, a white wall with a neutral plant or neutral picture is good. Not too many colors, not too many reflections. Can be just something simple. White wall with a plant work way better than anything else. Doesn't need to be too busy to not distract the person. Another thing is when you're talking in a video, make sure that the camera is in a position where you have 2 fingers on top of your head before the image finish, and your camera start on your umbilical cord, and you have enough space to move your hands on the side so people can see it. We have this paleo thing on the brain that has to do with trust and communication. So when you don't show in your hands, I cannot trust you. Why? Because when I don't see your hands, I don't know what you're doing. It's like when we were kids and your mom says, put the hands on top of the table. has to do with the same, has to do with manners. So showing me my hands, decide to be a polite and a correct way to communicate. You use your hands to quantify. We have been in classes together where like we practice handshake for a long time. Part of the classes is practice handshake. And today we don't know if anyone is going to handshake again. So I've been doing research, and you know me, I get obsessed until 3 o'clock in the morning looking for things. So I was looking what is the hormones and effect in your body when you handshake. And I found out that a handshake is equal to 3 hours of human interaction. People considering if they're going to like you, 26% of people considering if they're going to like you from the handshake. So how are we doing this virtually? Well, the same hormones will happen when you have human interaction. Handshake, or you like someone, is oxytocin. And oxytocin happens when you smile. So even dogs smile and can smell oxytocin in people. So if you start a video with a natural, friendly, welcome smile, the other person going to feel the oxytocin elevated, so you can get away from not being an expert on the video. Another thing, be camera ready. So I would advise, if you're going to have a camera or you're going to start a video, make sure that you cover your camera if you're not an expert in doing video, and not put your audio on, because I've been watching on the weekends, because we prepared a documentary related to that, how many people they're put okay on the meeting and start yelling, "Hey, I told you to freaking shut up." And, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, okay, what was that? Is the reality, but unconsciously that is going to predispose us in what is happening. Another thing, people doesn't have a perception of the camera. So sometimes they get too near to the camera and it's like a freaky. So as soon as I turn on my video, like, whoa, who was that? It was a pimple on top of your nose. If I can see the pimples or the pores in your face near the camera, you are too near. Another thing is be camera ready work-wise. If you see my YouTube channel, you're going to see that I did a special in all these situations where somebody was wearing underwear and they didn't know that because they say meeting is over. He need to disconnect from the meeting, and he was working in underwear. Another woman who was giving a class and have her husband walking semi-naked on the back. So make sure that you put a sign in your house. I have in a video meeting, so you can hold everybody out. Actually, if you do a fake background, you can even have a meeting on the bathroom, have really good acoustic. We talked with a sound engineer and we did a joke about it, and we ended up doing a webinar related to that. Another thing, be camera ready when you need everything in your table. Most people who are visual tend to forget names, and I'm guilty of that. So what I do is, I put red stickers or any sticker where the camera is located, so I remember where is the camera need to be looking, because most people tend to look themselves for being self-conscious. And if I'm looking to myself, I'm looking down. I'm not looking to you, so you feel I'm disconnected. Another thing, get stickers, put it in the keyword on the wall of your office with the name of the person, all the people you are talking on the video, the name of the company, and make a bullet point, all the things that you need to conquer in the video. I use color-coded. Red for urgent, yellow, green, and blue. Blue things are done that we can take away. And green and red are my call of action. So when I leave the meeting, it's a call of action that I have done. Most people is venting on videos today, but there are studies showing that the managers and companies who survived 9/11 and the depression in 2008, where the managers are companies who like, okay, we have a crisis, but what is the next step? Looking on the future. That happened when companies train their employees, because when you train together, you have another thing to talk. Even couples who learn new things together, they have something else to talk about it. So when you train something when you, I don't know, on the lunchtime, you watch videos with your coworker, with your employees, or with your customers, is a way to bond. This is a time to plant the seed with your customers. This is time to help. So it's time for companies to do extended warranties. For example, my phone company, cell phone company, is giving me I don't know how many gigabytes for free a month. And like, shoot, I was supposed to change the company. Now I don't. They give me so much free internet. They doing their part. Like they mess with my brain and I'm supposed to be. That's the point. So if you help people, and I'm not talking about manipulation, about talking about really be helpful. So if you know how to do videos and your customer doesn't and says, hey, do you want to jump in a video call so I can help you to do it better? Because I'm sure you need to talk to your people, and you know what? We receive a training in how to do it. So the company pay for it. Why I'm not going to give it to you? That is an awesome way to talk to a customer, to be on a relationship with a customer, giving something they need, curing a pain they have, and being helpful. And another really important thing, either in person and either in a video, you never get someone in higher position, lower position. What do you mean? If you have your cell phone in the top and the bottom of your table, and you're looking down to the phone, it's like you're looking down to the person. It's like when you're sitting in a meeting and you are in the small chair and the people is taller. I'm gonna remember you were sitting after school in a sofa, and your mom comes and says, in the steeple position, what happened on the school? And you were sitting down and your mom or the dad were looking down to you. It's like, I'm reprimanding you. So never, ever use the camera down. Today, even you can hold your cell phone against a cup in a couple of books. So grab a couple of books, get the camera, and make sure your face and your camera is 90 degrees, meaning that I'm facing directly to the camera. Even if I'm going to look a little lower, I can be facing the camera. Either don't put the camera too high or too low. Too high, you're going to look like the person being reprimanded. You're going to look bodily smaller than the other person. So always 90-degree cameras. Use your hand, use an agenda about the topic you're going to talk, and try to be positive. Let the other people bend, but let your personal life to be happening in your life. Because if you have a customer, they don't need to deal with it. People don't want to be around people who is negative today. Even though I'm going to be negative, you don't allow to be. I know it sounds selfish, but it's how the brain works today.
Mm-hmm. You know, as you were sharing these tips, and a couple things were coming to mind, as I am on a call every week with a group of coaching colleagues, and we're all sharing our virtual backgrounds, and it's a great opportunity to share things about that you're passionate about. So me, it's always food in my travels. And I remember there was one day I didn't have my camera on, and the coaching supervisor said, Howard, would you please put your camera on? And I said to her in response in a text message, now is not a good time. And she said, okay. And so what you said in your example was really very timely. People need to have safety for themselves when it comes time to being on these calls, if they don't want to be on camera, or they do, and then the guidance of what that you're also sharing of what's the good way to do things versus what's the not so good way. But that safety of being forced to do something, turn on the camera, Howard, it was just, my response. It was my response. As a supervisor or a manager, I think understanding how to treat that type of action, how to understand the personalities of your staff, because the introverts, like you said, you and I are introverts, but we can, once we get on and start talking, we can go on for hours. But a good manager, supervisor needs to understand his or her staff and what their needs are, and be able to tap into what their needs are, but also understand what are some of the requirements of the job, and to also accomplish the work. So those are some of the takeaways. And I love the idea of having two people on the phone live doing their work, but still being together. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I need to spend 30 minutes to get something done. I don't want to be distracted. So it's nice to have somebody on the other end of the other computer. Yeah.
What happened is most people is used to like, okay, I need to work 9 to 5. And because I have an environment who doesn't distract me, I'm wired to do that. But working from home require a lot of discipline. Because you get distracted from your kids, your cats. We were recording and my cat decided to cross the computer. So slowly I grabbed the cat and put it on the floor. We both smile silently and we keep going. That is the reality. I wasn't ready. Honest, we're recording this early. I'm not a morning person. And like, if I need to be camera ready, I look like a mess. I'm not camera ready. So we talk about that. So I think it's respectful. But when you work in an office, 9 to 5 and you're done 5. But if you don't have a schedule, if you don't know how to work from home, you can end up burning yourself because you never stop picking the computer, never stop picking the phone. And because people is in panic mode, they sending you emails at midnight. So that is the really danger, because if you start asking your employee or your people to reply or be checking emails at midnight, you are burning your people, and that is risky too. So as a manager, you need to respect the work time, and as an employee, you need to respect your own work time. So you need to get yourself accountable. When we start like 2.5 months ago with this, and actually this training started with one of the biggest customer we have, and says, desperate, call me in the morning, says, I need help. I'm like, yes, tell me what we can do. Like, no, we don't know what is the problem yet, but we know we will have a problem. And like, okay, calm down. We can take that. Our brand is crisis. We can manage whatever is happening. So let's start by the beginning. So I start asking questions. Says, okay, I need to talk to your head managers and I need to talk to your employees who are running like chicken without head because they don't know what to do. And that's where we develop virtual emotional intelligence class. What is this? First of all, we make everybody take an assessment, different assessment depending on the company. Not all the assessments are for the right company. Once we have the assessment, then we have the information in 24 hours. The team was putting together who are introvert, extrovert, and different, depending on introversion, extroversion coming in all the assessment. That was the most important part for us to determine. So we separate and like, okay, we have people in accounting, half are introverts or everybody's introvert, and they're going to need to be working with sales people all the time in video. So the first thing we did is we record a class and what is the meaning of introversion, extroversion, ambivert? And because we have people who process information, people-oriented, facts and data, and academic, beside to explaining, we show, for example, the word introvert, ambivert, started in 1947. Those are the studies, if you want to read it. That's who determined who is an introvert and extrovert. So we give information to everyone so they decide what model they want to take. That was a huge improvement because everybody felt they were taken in consideration. So if you don't know what is the intake and process of your people, you cannot give them information because they're going to have a resistance. So, and we give them the first video recorded, not live, so everybody can find their own comfort zone before we jump. After that, we give them 24 hours and we send a questionnaire and says, who want to be on the classes on camera? Who want to be on the classes only with audio, and who want to be on the classes not participating with audio and only making questions in private chat. So we separate the people on that. And when we did the breakout rooms online with people who is introvert, extrovert, and ambivert on the same group, and we ask them is, tell me 3 things that it's bothering you when people like me talk to you and vice versa. And tell me 3 things that I can do to work better for you. Only with that training,
we elevate the workers' interaction, and almost say 67% was the first week. The manager were like, I had people who hate each other all the time. And now they like to work together. What you have done? I tell them that it's not the other person is trying to drive you crazy. It's the way they process information. After that, we went to face reading, we went to communication, body language, and some companies hire us for 2 months because another thing. It takes time to process and understand, because it's learning from yourself before you're learning from others. If I know I'm an introvert, I cannot put video calls every 45 minutes. What I do is I don't start working until 11. First call is at noon. My last one is 7 p.m. But in the middle, always get between 15 minutes to 30 minutes. For example, yesterday, I have my weekly meeting with my team, 2 hours and a half. Why? Because it's a lot happening. I have a 30-minute break. I went to water my plant. And you says, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, no, I did something completely different who take me to not thinking. I was watering my plant to see if my oregano and my parsley is ready to be cooked. I check what I want to have for dinner. I feed my cat, my raccoon outside, and went back to the meeting like I just wake up for a nice nap, because mentally I took a nap. An extrovert is going to probably be watching a movie. So another thing, if you're not in the mood to smile, and I get it, because everybody's taking this in a different way. For you and I, it's like, yoo-hoo, we're in Disney World. We don't need to go out. We don't need to watch people. We don't need to interact. But for others are taking it really, really bad. Actually, we have higher numbers of people asking for antidepressants than for COVID-19 tests. That is danger. So watch a blooper. Watch something that make you happy. If your happy place is the next vacation, put it behind your computer. So every time that you have a meeting that you feel is like bamboo sticks under your nails, concentrate in that picture and says, that is my happy place. That's my happy place. That is how Lamaze system for when women want to go birth, they tell them to bring an object that is going to be fixated. So when you fixate it in that object, can be the next pair of shoes that you want to buy. Nobody's going to judge you. It's your happy place. My happy place is doing my meetings on my sunroom and looking in my forest and says, I'm safe. It's my safe place. I don't need to be running. It's not a personal meeting. And I'm going to give you an advantage for you, a study that is not going to be published until the next 2 weeks, as 68% of the employees do not feel safe to go back to work until August to September. 82% of the employees, they want to be allowed to wear a mask and gloves inside the office. And 75% of the people working in companies probably is not going to go back to work, not as a penalty, not as because they got fired, is because companies realize the working from home save them a lot of money. They can reinvest on the company and they can get as a bonus for people. So being ready to be virtual today is not an option. It's a skill that need to be get in your resume. For that, the only way to learn it is human behavior. You can learn to sell because you can be a natural seller. You can take a class, you can have a coach, but human behavior, you know that because we're talking about, and you have taken some classes to incorporate in your coaching, and you're a coach, take little drops. And when you learn something, helping a coworker or helping a client to incorporate that concept, making you incorporate and retain 80% more than what you learn that if you only take the class. So that's the reason you not only keep, I've been seeing those 10 tips to be a better body language in video. Or we're going to show you in a class in 6 hours how to nail it and not to suck on video. Like, no, it doesn't happen that way. Everybody has the right to do their own business, but it doesn't work that way. We have been doing this for 28 years, not 28 days. So please be aware. We're not saying we are the only company. Just be aware who you ask for help. Because in time of desperation, people tend to do the wrong decisions, and those decisions can cost a lot of money. People getting quit or get fired.
This is just like a really fascinating conversation. And I also want to acknowledge something again, because when you were going through the tips, it's been on my mind as I'm continuing to listen, is that idea of putting the little sticky notes around the perimeter of your computer. I thought it was just a brilliant idea. And just for the agenda, you've got your red, green, yellow agenda items. That's absolutely wonderful.
I have color coded everything because we are both visual. So your calendar is color coded, your notes are color coded. And I always says, when you want to color code it, use the lights, like when you stop in a light. So use red, yellow, and green, and blue is safe. So use those colors because your brain automatically is going to recognize it. So that's the trick to do.
Fantastic. And before we head out, Susan, obviously we want folks to come to the Human Behavior Lab and learn more about you and your work. And I want you to share the URL in just a minute. Is there a book or a guide that if someone wanted to learn a little bit more, just to kind of get started, as a step before they make that call to you, is there a book that you would recommend or a reading?
I have the pleasure and honor to meet Mitch Russo, and I'm going to do a little intro why I think you need to read him. We met some time ago, and he has been coaching me today as a friend, and how to make an invisible organization, how to move everything online, how to have all my team online, and what are the key notes that you need to go online. And to tell you who is Mitch Russo? Everybody know Tony Robbins, right? Well, if I tell you Mitch Russo was called by Holmes and Robbins to be the CEO of the company that Tony Robbins is today. He was who built the company, and he ended up having 300 employees under his control all around the world, managing from the spare bedroom on his house. So I always says, that's the reason you said, remember before you go with the people who knows what they're doing. I have the luxury to have still talking with Mitch once every 2 or 3 weeks. He has been a lot of help, but if you need to read about it, the book is called The Invisible Organization. The ingenious CEO are creating thriving virtual companies. By the way, he did this 10 to 15 years ago when virtual VA, or virtual assistant, didn't exist. He basically invented how people work from home. You have it in audiobook and you have it in paper, and I get that audiobook and that book to all my team when we start going completely online 2 years ago, and have those tips that are easy to digest, because people who sometimes get on that level you think are cocky, Mitch is so down to earth, and they just every concept and tip to you to incorporate it. And again, I don't have any commission and get to Mitch. I have the pleasure to know him from inside, and business-wise, he's a genius. He helped me a lot.
Fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. And Susan, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
If you are ready for the dark side, you can Google me and find me on LinkedIn, Susan Ibitz. I reply to all my requests on Facebook. You can go to humanbehaviorlab.com. That is our consulting company where we tailor training. But if you need training already recorded and ready to go, I always say you can take me virtually home. You can go to humanbehaviorhackerschool.com when you have half of the classes for free. And by the way, Mitch give us as a gift 3 classes for free, including the virtual organization. And you can have all the experts on the world related to human behavior. We are the only online e-learning platform who only specialize in human behavior. And today, I think it's really important that the reason we have so many classes for free to help people.
Fantastic. And we'll most definitely put the links back to Human Behavior Lab as well as to the school out onto our website, and also links to your social sites, LinkedIn, Facebook. And I know you're on Twitter as well. And we'll provide a link back to Mitch Russo's book, The Invisible Interview. Susan, to our listeners, I get the pleasure of knowing Susan and interacting with her. And I'm especially looking forward to once this pandemic is over and quarantine is over, is to have a cup of coffee and adult beverage with Susan in her presence, because she's just so wonderful. And we are extremely grateful at the Success Insight podcast to have her taking time out of her weekend, because we are recording this on the weekend, to share with us her pearls of wisdom and really some phenomenal advice within these tips that she shared. So, Susan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Truly, I'm very grateful and appreciate it.
It's been forever since we have the last coffee together. And I need to thank you, because most people don't know this, but one of the pro bono that I'm doing for the last 2 or 3 years, you introduced me with the people, and is one of the most rewarding things that I do in my private time. And you introduced me with this pro bono for CTC Chicago, where you are a coach to doing pro bono work. And people think that we are only behind the customers and paying, but most people doesn't know, like people, you and I, we have our heart and what we do because we love it. So my thanks to you, because I met them through you.
Fantastic. And I appreciate that. Yeah, I remember that day like it was right in front of me.
Oh, I was reading I didn't know she was the director of the program, and I started reading her face. I'm freaking out. You're right.
Right. I remember that. Okay. We're going to keep this in the podcast too, let people know. So when you meet Susan and you have a pleasure having a virtual call, just so you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in addition to the exchanging of ideas, okay? But it's all good. It's all good. You're going to love Susan. Susan, once again, thank you so much. And to our listeners, please do go out to humanbehaviorlab.com, go out to their links to the school, and we're going to provide those on our show notes. You can connect with Susan on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And again, just a wonderful conversation today. And we appreciate Susan taking the time to really, in this age of our global crisis, this pandemic, COVID-19, as individuals, coaches, entrepreneurs, as business owners, leaders, managers, employees, we are all having to navigate some territory that for some is going to be uncharted. For some, they've been down that path, perhaps not as effectively as they might have liked. But, having these kinds of conversations, hopefully they'll create some light bulbs, some insights for you. So once again, we really do hope you found this particular session valuable. Please do visit us on the successinsightpodcast.com website. Add a comment to this episode. You can also find this episode on our LinkedIn page, our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and the podcast will also be available on all the major podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. That's it for today, folks. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, be safe and do have a phenomenal day as well. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.